Hello and welcome back to Fangirl FM, presented to you by the one and only Eclectica Division. This week is my week. I have some really exciting things that I've been dying to yap my mouth about, share my opinions that nobody asked for. So I'm just really excited to see where this goes, to hear your thoughts and opinions. Wait, I dropped my phone at the Trader Joe's today and I thought it was fine, but the back fucking cracked. Oh, there's no fucking way. Oh my god. Well, fuck me. Jesus fucking Christ. Always something going on in goddamn Trader Joe's. Alright, anyway. This week I wanted to talk about Beyonce's new singles. Um, she released them during the Super Bowl. There was a commercial that she was in, and at one point she was like, "Alright, they're ready for new music." And I thought it was just a bit for the commercial. But I was on Twitter, because of course I was, I'm chronically online, and then she just fucking dropped some singles, which is, like, crazy. I fucking love this new era of, like, artists, like, announcing their music, like Taylor doing it at the Grammys, Beyonce dropping them during the Super Bowl after a commercial, like, that's fucking crazy. But the 2 singles she dropped are called Texas Hold'em and 16 Carriages, and both of these singles were wildly different than Renaissance, which was her previous work, in the way that they are country music. They are true and true country music. And, I knew she was capable and great at country music because, we heard that in her song Daddy Lessons, which the finest to ever have been released. But yeah, I wanna get into those, and of course, we can't talk about those without talking about country music as a whole today. We touched on this a little bit in last week's episode, but I have more yapping that I wanna do about it. And this is perfect because this gives me an outlet to just yap on and on and on. But we'll start with the first single, 16 Carriages. This is more of a ballad than it is, your typical upbeat country anthem. But for me, what this song does is showcase one of country music's best attributes, in my opinion, which is storytelling. We'll get more into country storytelling later, but this single basically paints a picture of her upbringing and her rise to fame and all of the internal hurdles she had to overcome to get to the level of success and stardom she's at today. Yeah, this song is just absolutely fantastic. Kind of more of a blend of pop and R&B and country than Texas Hold'em is, which is just straight country with Beyonce's own little spin on it. But I love this song. I think its storytelling is fantastic. I think its lyricism is fantastic. And I really loved that in the music video, it didn't take away or even add to the lyrics that she had in the song. It was very much a visual indicator of what this next era is going to be. Her next single that she released, the second one, Texas Hold'em. I need a moment of silence for this song, okay? This song is so fucking good. But Texas Hold'em is like Miley Cyrus's / Hannah Montana's Hoedown Throwdown's older sister. It is good, it's fresh, it's country, but in a way that is new. Um, and what this song is to me is kind of just an anthem of being like, cut the shit, lay all your cards down. We are going back to our roots. We are celebrating who we are, where we came from, what makes us us, and we're choosing to rise above the issues in the country, the issues in the world, the issues that are facing us. Not necessarily that we are ignoring them, but we are celebrating in the face of them, in spite of them. And I just think it's great. I am so excited for Beyonce's new era. And it's so completely different from what we last saw from her, which is Renaissance, which was, very much an homage to house music in queer spaces, specifically black queer spaces. And that was iconic for her. And she's doing another genre shift. No one genre shifts the way Miss Beyonce Knowles Carter genre shifts. But while she's coming out with country music, this was an era that nobody expected. I think we need to kind of get into this whole country music revival. We touched on this a little bit in the last video, but I've so much to say about it. And like all true musical geniuses, Beyonce constantly has her finger on the pulse of the trend cycle. She knows what's coming, she knows what's new, and she rises to be the face of it. And I really do think country music is facing an entire rebrand and revival from what we know it as. And I kind of wanted to get into the evolution of country music, why it's reviving, what it's reviving from, and how it's affecting the music industry as a whole. Picture a country music fan. For my Philly and PA girls out there, I want you to picture the average Froggy 101 summer concert goer. Now, maybe you didn't picture this, but in my mind, growing up, what I saw country music fans were white, straight, conservative Americans. Usually men, sometimes women, but usually a man, coming from the suburbs / rural America. And when I was growing up, I did not like country. I was a hater through and through. I didn't like modern country, that kind of arena rock that we'll get into more of why that is suddenly the face of country. And I didn't like the picture of who most country fans were. That was not who I considered myself. That's not who I considered my friends to be. And that's not something I wanted to necessarily align myself with. And this new country music revival is completely changing what the picture of a country singer and a country music fan is. It's branching out to so many different demographics that coined country music. But let's get into how country music started. So a lot of sources disagree, but country music started generally in like the late 17th, 18th century as folk music, brought over by African Americans who were enslaved at the time and Native Americans, and then later coined by colonial settlers in the Appalachian region. We're talking Kentucky, Tennessee, West Virginia, etc., etc. But country music stemmed from folk music. And what folk music was at its core was storytelling, which is the element that has progressed through all of country until we hit this arena rock era of country. It was folklore at its finest. And then sometime in the 1920s, folk music and this, folklore storytelling started to turn into what we know as country music. Early country music was marked by a lot of banjos, a lot of fiddles, and what we would now associate with Appalachian bluegrass music, which is a branch of folk and country music. So we can the puzzle pieces are there, all right? We're connecting them as we go. So by the 30s and 40s, country music was popping, okay? Especially in rural America. And, some of the most iconic country artists of all time came from this era, like Hank Williams. And then fast forward a little bit, we go into World War II. This is where we first started to see a divide in country music, from when it went to storytelling to when it became political. Country music was introduced to soldiers overseas who were currently fighting in World War II. And the country music that was being introduced to them was just your regular country music, but it started to evolve into very pro-America, very nationalistic, very support our troops music, which in that context makes sense because it was being created for and by soldiers fighting in World War II on behalf of America. However, there was a group of people that did not agree with this political shift, and it formed into what we know as one of the most iconic country eras, outlaw country. Created in the 50s, rose to insane popularity in the 60s and 70s. And this is where we see country icons emerge. Johnny Cash with the Folsom Prison Blues, Willie Nelson, and I don't know if he was an icon, but he's an icon to me, John Prine. This music was characterized by a rebellion against systemic oppression. It was anti-cop, anti-government, pro-individual freedom, pro-collective freedom, and we heard a lot of messages that would even be progressive for now come out of this country music. Johnny Cash regularly talked about the systemic oppression of people who were in prison and the pipeline of how you get to prison. John Prine wrote my favorite country song of all time, of any genre, of any era, which is "Your flag decal won't get you into heaven anymore." Basically saying, all of you Anglo-Saxon Protestant white Americans think that being an American is Christian inherently. And if you are a good American, if you are nationalistic and you hang up that flag and you go to church and you praise America in the same way that you praise Jesus, you will get into heaven. And that's not the case. Because America at its core, especially, in recent times and even back then, America's values are inherently contradictory to what are supposed to be Christian values. One of my favorite lines from the song is, "Your American flag decal won't get you into heaven anymore. It's already overcrowded from your dirty little wars." And I don't think we need to delve too deep into the politics of that. You get what he's saying. I get what he's saying. The people listening to that song got what he was saying. And this era of country music really was a callback to the roots of country music, which, what we talked about before, was a folklore from oppressed people. That's what country music is about. It's storytelling in spite of the systems that keep people down. And country music continued to evolve, but the next major evolution, which shaped country music as we know it today, which shaped the picture of who a country singer is and what their target demographic is what we call as post 9/11 country. When 9/11 happened, it obviously shook the world and America to its core. And a lot of patriotism and nationalism rose after this terrorist attack. And we saw a lot of iconic country songs and singers come from this time. We saw Alan Jackson, with Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning? Toby Keith with Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue. Daryl Worley wrote a lot of songs about it. And you know what? I could say a million things I needed to say about how America and its nationalistic culture took a turn after 9/11. But you gotta fucking admit, Courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue bangs, okay? Uncle Sam put your name at the top of his list. That's so fucking... My boyfriend's parents play that a lot. And I gotta sit and pretend like, this is not me. And it's not me. But it's fucking catchy. But yeah, these people and these values became the face of country music. And obviously, it was an extremely tense time of our country. People lost loved ones. Over 3,000 people died. It was horrific. And America was banding together for better and for worse. You could not say anything about 9/11 unless it was in full support of the American people and their government. The Chicks made a statement at one of their concerts speaking up against President Bush and the invasion of Iraq. When the Chicks made this statement, they set a precedent for what will happen in country music if you decide to speak up against America and the American government, specifically Republican presidents and our nationalistic culture. The Chicks were what we would call in our day canceled. They were immediately canceled. They were banned from country radio stations. They were banned from country music awards. They were banned from music awards altogether. There was a whole trend of people burning their CDs, burning their t-shirts. They were in headlines for weeks. Their career was over. And that set a statement that you could only exist in country music if you unanimously agree with American nationalism and the American government, which is an extremely far cry from what country music started as. And because of this, country music started pandering to this demographic. This was a demographic that they knew they could make a lot of money off of. This is where we saw arena rock come in. That Keith Urban kind of brand. Bo Burnham actually did a really on-the-nose skit about this in 2016, where he just talks about the pandering that country music is now doing. Pandering to corporations, creating music that is such a far cry from Appalachian and Southern roots that it started with. It is now made for arenas. It is now made by white men who have never stepped foot on a goddamn farm. They have $4,000 pristine white cowboy boots, $600 custom Wranglers, and they're flying in their private jets from town to town, singing about the good old blue-collar American experience. And this is where I found myself to completely not associate with the genre, and where I'm sure many people found themselves to not want to associate with country music. Because despite what the media may want you to think, the majority of Americans are not conservative American white men. Most country music artists or country music listeners don't even live up to these expectations that country music feels that it has created for the ideal American. It was very nuclear family. Recently, in the past few years, we've seen a resurgence of country music, and not the kind of country music we're thinking of. I mean, sure, there's still those people, we have Morgan Wallen and all them, but we also saw subtle changes, like Luke Bryan. His music is apolitical, which is what country music has been for a long time. It's been, I live on a ranch with my blue jeans and my girl by my side. His music was apolitical, but hit deeper than that, and then his personal values differed from what country music values have been seen as for the past 20 years. We talked about it in last week's video, which he covered Tracy Chapman's Fast Car. Tracy Chapman is a black lesbian woman who wrote folk music, a far cry from country music's ideal demographic. And not only did he cover it, but he got permission from her to cover it, and he didn't change any of the pronouns. And he has since spoken up about LGBT equality and about racial injustice. And while that is the bare minimum, we were not seeing anything like that from country musics in a long time. I mean, like I said before, the Chicks set a precedent of what happens if you bring differing political views into the country music scene. And he was able to do this and maintain an excellent reputation. Is that because he's a white man and he looks like what we expect him to look like and what country music listeners want him to look like? Yes. But it opened a door. Same with Tyler Childers. He is bringing back Appalachian folk country music at its core. The sound of it, the lyrics of it, but also the values of it. He recently created a music video that sparked a lot of controversy, where it featured two gay men in a relationship. And, the queer population was very much not a demographic for country music. And a lot of country music was nuclear family, a man and a woman and 2 kids in a white picket fence house. That's what the listeners also believed a family was. I'm generalizing here. I know not all country music listeners are like that, but you can't deny that that's the target demographic. And a lot of his listeners got very upset with him for this. They were like, this is not what we signed up for. But when you're listening to country music, isn't that what you sign up for? That's what it used to be. You used to sign up for real statements about real things in the world. It was always political, but in an inherently different way. So I think Tyler Childers is becoming a face of this resurgence, and we're seeing more women in country, like Casey Musgraves and Maren Morris. And while they do fit the picture of, previous female country music stars, their ideals are so different. Casey Musgraves is an avid supporter of the queer community, as is Maren Morris. They've both spoken about it. They've both made country music their own, making it for the girls, by the girls. Something I'm going to refer to as the cuntification of country music. We're also seeing more male artists go this way. Orville Peck. Can we fucking talk about Orville Peck for a second? This is a gay man who does not shy away from the fact that he is gay. He does not hide that in his music or his image. Who is creating country music, and he's good at it. And he's doing amazing on the charts. I forget what his one song was, but when it was used in an episode of Euphoria, it skyrocketed in the country music charts. And we're seeing all of these, people who rebel against the face and the idea of what country music is, starting to rise in country music. And as they rise, they're bringing their key demographics with them. They're bringing Black people and queer people and women, people of color, into a music scene where they were previously told they are not allowed. Into a music scene that was created by them and then kicked them out. And they're coming back in. And in my opinion, this resurgence and complete rebrand of country music is not only going to affect the country music industry, but the music industry as a whole. The music industry now has to face the fact that there's a new target demographic here. They can no longer be ignored in country music. And even the chicks they're seeing a resurgence. People are apologizing for what happened to the chicks. And if you'd like to speak out against something political in our nation, it's no longer acceptable for your career to be completely over the way it was for the chicks. So I'm extremely excited for this rebrand, and I'm so excited to see women of color like Beyonce diving wholeheartedly into this genre and creating a whole new category of people who can enjoy this music, not in spite of its political affiliations, but because of it. I'm really interested to see how this changes record labels, how this changes new country music, how this changes existing country music. Yeah, let me know what you think. Do you think that this is just going to be its own little corner of country, or if this is going to be what country music is now, and how it's going to affect the music industry? Let me know your thoughts on Beyonce's new singles, on her new era, and actually, please tell me who your favorite new country or old country artist is that breaks the barriers of what we think of as your typical country music artist / country music fan. Because I'm no longer a country music hater. This shit fucks. It's good. Thank you for joining me. We'll see you next week. Okay. My whole audio and video was fucked up. I recorded that whole video, and after like the 3-minute mark, the quality just turned to balls. It's just me. So we're gonna do this all over again. That's okay. It gives me an opportunity to not ramble over my words, which I did in the last video, so maybe it'll save me some editing. I don't know. Recording in this new system has me. Look, tomorrow's hair wash day. All right, the bangs are not banging. The hair is not hairing. Lay your cards down on the table. But cut the shit.